Good morning, council and staff and members of the public who might be watching us. Councillor Palmater is joining us online. And so I will start with the land acknowledgement. Deputy Mayor.
Morning. I would like to acknowledge that Wolfville is situated in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, and as such ask that we conduct our business with the 7 sacred teachings in mind: truth, honesty, love, courage, respect, wisdom, and humility.
Thank you. Before we have a motion to approve the agenda, there are a number of things to add, so I'll do those first. One, we will add the one-time operational funding request for Rugby Nova Scotia. Secondly, remove my verbal report on the Recreation Task Force. Third, add an in-camera per S.22 parts A and E of the MGA sale, lease, and security of municipal property and contract negotiations. And is there anything else that members of council wish to add?
I thought we were gonna.
Just Councillor McKay.
I was just gonna ask the flow that, so rugby is being added where?
Oh, it's rugby will be 7D,
Okay.
and I think it's
On this.
yeah, we'll be removing 8C. We'll be adding the in-camera, I guess, after number 10. And is there anything else members of council wish to add?
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Councillor
Palmater.
Literally his hand.
Yeah, my head. Yeah, don't get even. Pardon me, I'm not very familiar with this. I thought we were gonna have a agenda item to rescind the discussion about the housing here yesterday or last week.
That's what I'm asking. If anybody wishes to add that, are you adding that?
I would like to. Yep.
Okay, so acting interim CEO, where would you put that at the end of? So make that 7E.
Yeah, 7E.
Okay, so 7E, we will add rescind the motion for correspondence to the province re-housing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, now those are everybody clear on those changes? And Deputy Mayor?
I would like to move that Committee of the Whole approve its agenda for July 9 to 2024.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Madeira Voss, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's passed. And we have 2 sets of minutes. Deputy Mayor, Committee of the Whole minutes of June 11th.
I would move that Committee of the Whole approve the minutes from Committee of the Whole on June 11, 2024.
Thank you. And a second.
I'll second
Thank
that.
you, Councillor Butler. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And Committee of the Whole in-camera minutes of June 11th, 2020.
I would like to move that we approve the minutes of the Committee of the Whole in-camera meeting, June 11, 2024.
Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. We have no presentations, and I don't see anyone in the gallery for public input. Is there anybody online? No, there's not. All right, so we will go directly to committee reports. Right. Okay, Councillor Ingham, do you have anything you wish to add?
No, as submitted.
As submitted. And Councillor Madeira Voss on planning?
No, as submitted.
As submitted. And Councillor Palmater, source water protection?
As submitted.
Okay, thank you. And CAO report.
Okay, thank you. The report was circulated. I only have one update here, but staff may have something else to add. And the update is around the audit committee because we haven't received the financial statements back yet from the auditors. The audit committee that was scheduled for Friday, we're looking to push that to Thursday next week. And I don't know if Beth, has anything to add as to why there's a delay? I'm not sure if it was something.
Can you hear me? Yes, good.
So we haven't received the financial statements from Grant Thornton. I think their interim testing took a little bit longer. Normally it's a 2-week process. It's actually run into 3+ weeks. And I think that's just given the volume of work that they have at this time of year.
Thank you.
So we received an update from one of the partners yesterday that they felt that they could provide statements to us this week, which will then allow us to turn them around for next week.
Perfect. Thank you. Any
Are,
questions?
are there any questions? Perhaps the-
Good morning,
Councillor
Laura.
Eva.
Welcome. You look really nice sitting there and your bright smile.
Let's all
I-
ask her question.
Yes, no,
Let's
no.
not.
It may be sort of more directed to Alex.
Okay.
Just because I'm driving around in more East End. Looks like the parking lot is being paved today. And what about the Vic Center since the splash pad is opening on Monday? Where are we at with that?
The parking lot paving began yesterday. It should be complete by the end of today. There's still a bit of work to do over there after the paving's done. There's some cleanup, landscaping, line painting, and the sidewalk that winds from Main Street up to the trailhead has to be complete before we can open the parking lot. As far as the Vic, the building is substantially complete. We'd actually like to offer a tour for counselors if they wish after this meeting today to see the building. We haven't officially taken the keys from the contractor yet, but there's minor deficiencies and small cleanup items ongoing, which should be mostly complete by today, I was told by the contractor. So with the Welcome Center being near completion and the construction equipment and lay down demobilized and the fencing all removed, we're actually prepared to open the splash pad again on this coming Monday. Our parks crew is working on getting it cleaned up and prepped for use again.
Can I just have one follow? Then to follow up to the parking lot, when do you anticipate that will be operational?
It will likely be operational in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Just wanted to
Councillor Madeira Voss?
just following up on that, sorry, visitor center. I just wanted to say I've had a lot of people comment on how much they enjoy the little mini welcome center that we have. Is that going to go down or can we keep that up or will that be taken down as soon as the other one opens? What? It's probably hot in there, but it just, people really,
Playhouse.
yeah, it's lovely. And I just don't know what the status is. So I have been asked if that's coming down or not. I mean, I know the new one looks wonderful. I've walked by and it's very inviting, but anyway.
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor Madeira Voss, I'll answer this on behalf of Devin, who's not with us today. We were gifted the use of that very whimsical building from a local contractor who actually created it from scrap wood that was just at his shop. We have had amazing feedback. And when it was designed, we just asked for something that would reflect the spirit of Wolfville. And I think it was just knocked out of the park, so to speak. So it was on loan. We did not pay for that. So it is likely to be returned to the contractor. I'm not sure of the future use that is intended for it, but I suspect if council feel a real attachment to it, something could be negotiated. We've kind of bounced around some ideas perhaps for use around the holiday season. I know we usually, I'm just noticing that Councillor Butler is sitting and that's good. But we usually do put Santa in a yurt, but I have to be careful when I mention Santa. But I think that there has been some discussion about how adorable that would look with snow on top of it. And perhaps there is a future use. So anyway, we're really lucky to have such great partners in the community who supported us. And again, we should acknowledge that the wine bus and the wine bus patrons have been really supportive during that temporary move. And we'll make sure that everybody's transitioned to the new space effectively over the next few weeks.
Other? Councillor McKay?
Thank you. Just a question on the bikes. Do we know where they are going to be? I don't know how that's gonna operationally roll out. So we have bikes, where are they? Are they on loan? Cause you used to get them with this is the different program than the library. So how does this work?
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay. So regarding the e-bike fleet that we will be building out with support through funding, part of that program includes a storage facility. And I believe, again, speaking on behalf of some of our folks who are not here today, my understanding is that includes a C can for storage, which will also allow us effective space for charging and keeping those bikes secure. So we will have an update on that. I would anticipate by September when we convene again. If we have something prior to that, if we have an update that we can provide at council later this month, we certainly will. But that they will be stored in one location, and those will belong to the town exclusively. They won't be shared.
So they're not going to be in use this summer. We won't get them until September, is that?
I'm not sure what the timeline is. I do know I've been chasing, we have been pursuing some more accessible bikes. So I think the regular fleet is easier to source. The accessible ones, we've been looking at a tandem for somebody to use with support who might be low sighted, or one with kind of seating on the front. So those are harder to access, but my understanding is the other ones, Luke has been working on an order.
Awesome. Great, thank you. Can I just also say, I think Nova Scotia Music Week is still missing from our list. It was on the minutes from last week, and then I went back to check from what I read.
I didn't say
Nova
yet.
Scotia Music Week is still missing from our list of upcoming events. We mentioned it in the minutes.
Oh,
That's what made
yeah,
me
yeah.
remind it. Just somewhere, it's November.
Yeah, we can make sure that's added onto the CEO report. Sorry about that.
Other questions or comments of staff? No. I do have one, Alex, related to the email that we got yesterday, I believe, about flooding on Pleasant. And I'm just curious, I wonder if part of the issue was that the tide was up. I don't know what the state of our underground stormwater pipes are on Pleasant, but I know from my own backyard, it was like 4 inches high and then it suddenly dropped. And I'm assuming that was when the tide went out. Do you have any information related to that?
It's highly unlikely that up that high at Pleasant that the tides would have any effect on the storm system at all. If what you're thinking of were to occur, the entire downtown would be underwater to the roofs. So with regard to the French drain you spoke about in your own yard, it is very possible that the storm pipes were just at capacity for their size at that particular time. The storm pipes are designed with enough capacity to handle between a 5 to 10 year storm typically, and some of the older infrastructure in town may not even be able to handle that. So
Okay.
these are all.
Yeah, I really wasn't worried about we are close to the water, so I wondered about that, but I was thinking about the people on Pleasant who seem to experience some frequent flooding, and I wondered if in fact it was our storm sewers, or are you saying that it was like 100-year storm and that's going to happen?
I'm not sure what the actual storm that they experienced the issues was, but like I said, the storm pipes that we have, especially some of the older ones, may not even be capable of handling a 5-year storm, and that particular property is quite a large drainage area going into a very small, narrow space between two buildings. So it's difficult to manage without other measures, which is why I recommended they seek the advice of a professional engineer to assess the drainage area and make some recommendations for possible low impact development or retention system to try and help mitigate some of those issues in larger storms.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Butler?
Just looking at the events again, when the dates are finalized, can we add the election dates as well to that, since they're Wolfville specific? Well, they're not Wolfville specific, they're municipal, but those particular dates.
Anything else for the CAO's report? Okay, thank you. Staff reports for discussion, Roby Tufts Porta Potty. Is that you, Barb?
Morning again. So through Mayor Donovan to members of council, as you're aware, the accessible porta potty has been located at the Roby Tufts Park location for a period of time now. And we've come back to council on numerous occasions to request an extension of that facility in that location. Originally, it was an equity piece to provide supports to folks who were living rough in that location to ensure that they had access to washroom facilities 24/7. I'm happy to report that we have updated the lease for our facilities at Railtown. Railtown washrooms are now available 24/7. Staff's likely aware we've been working to re-sign those locations and to better communicate that those facilities are available to everyone to use at all times of day and night. But what we have found is that there is continued use of the facilities at Roby Tufts, not just by the folks who are unhoused, but by all members of our community and folks who are visiting. Of course, we're all aware that the Community Oven does some phenomenal programming there that draws a lot of people. So the request is twofold. So we'd like to extend the lease until we feel that it's not being used. But additionally, we're requesting that council move this decision-making process back to staff. It will allow us to save you some time, save us from rewriting reports on a regular basis. But additionally, all other decisions about portable toilets are made at the staff level. So we appreciate the initial support. Again, as I mentioned, that really was an equity piece that members of council were very mindful to provide to members of our community who were unhoused. And I am able to answer questions or just observe as you enter your decision-making process.
Okay. Are there questions of staff? Deputy Mayor.
Just having a husband who volunteers at the Community Oven, do you have any way of tracking the kind of usage? The turnout at the oven on Thursday nights is phenomenal now, ever since Apple Blossom. And I know the library's closed, and do you follow that or?
I do not.
Okay. You don't like
If-
pizza?
If council would
Too
like
measured.
to direct staff to monitor that would be, I would suggest a motion would be appropriate. We have not.
Quantity, oh my.
I will say, the provider of the portable toilet who does come and clean and maintain, empty it, all of those fabulous things, has not indicated that we need to increase the visits to do so. I suspect they would let us know before anybody else.
Well, I'm totally in favor of what you're proposing, so
Yeah.
carry on.
Councillor Madeira Voss.
I just want to say I'm in favor of it as well. And I've had folks I know who walk that trail tell me how much they appreciate the fact that it's there and located where it is. It just seems to fit with whatever pace and distance that they're walking or running the trail. But I think it's a benefit to many people, or convenience, I guess, to many people. So I certainly support what you're proposing.
Councillor McKay.
Thanks. I too think, I've heard lots of people use it. I have a question on this location. It is really close to this, I'll call it a street.
Trail.
No,
No?
when you step out of the washroom, you're on where people drive.
Oh.
Like you literally
Curb.
come out and you're
Curb.
like, and you open the door and you're like, you could get hit. So it's not it just needs to maybe moved a few feet so that when you come out into safety, not walking onto the street. It is really close to that. Especially where it's accessible. Yeah, the curb, that's the word I'm looking for. I haven't had enough coffee yet to grasp the English language. So just a question on that, don't have to answer it at this moment in time, just something that maybe staff could look at. And my question becomes, if it moves to operations, because I think this has actually given us a really good discussion on washrooms in town overall. I think spending a lot of time at Reservoir Park lately, and it was packed up there last night because it was hot and everyone was swimming. Thankfully, the algae was gone and everyone was in. So that was good. But when porta potties are there for years, they're perma potties. So that then makes you think there should be a washroom here permanently. So Reservoir Park should have one. There should be more down there. And we've talked about that around this table lots of times. So I'm in favor of leaving it there until, and I would even say till the end of October, because there's also Devour and bike rides, and Valley Harvest, I think, is in October. I could get my list again. So all those things are there. So I think the end of October would be great. But I would also like, instead of saying move it to operations, kick it back with a strategic look, or maybe October, the new council to look at what washrooms facilities should be within the town as a whole. Because it isn't our business's responsibility, because it's expensive to upkeep a washroom if it's being used a lot.
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay, my understanding is that our community planner, Lindsay, is looking at an overall strategy on access to public washrooms throughout the community. That was part of our discussion when we were kind of moving forward with what facilities would be at the Visitor Information Center, which hopefully people will see later on today, which of course also includes a shower, which is very exciting, again, from that equity perspective. I will definitely take that direction about relocating just the entrance of that. It is where it is because of code. I trust that Director D'Souza will take that back to the staff that he's communicating with about relocating it. And as far as what's in Reservoir Park, the portable toilet versus the vault toilet that was there, again, that would be something for Director D'Souza to update on, because of course we've been waiting to hear about progress in designing a new washroom facility for Reservoir, which would be permanent and which would have flush capabilities.
Thank you. Good. Councillor Butler?
Just to follow up to the comment that Councillor McKay made, every now and then I'll sit in Roby Tufts Park, like on a Saturday, and read, and I have seen a lot of parents who had to stop their children from running from the park over to the washroom with a lot of traffic coming by. I love that the community oven uses it, but again, if they're in the community, they have to cross that very busy right out of the liquor store. That's a very easy road to leave the liquor store because it's very, very busy. So yeah, just a matter of safety. I have seen a lot of parents sort of have to do the soccer arm just to keep their kid back. And then, yeah, some people that you just sort of barrel out of the door and you have to step right out into the road. So safety wise, just a matter of maybe placing it elsewhere, fixing that up a little bit. But I do like, there is a need for those things. So it is just a matter of safety.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, we have two motions. Who would like to put the first one on the table?
First one,
Councillor McKay, thank you.
Sure, just gotta make my list out. I would move that committee of the whole forward to the following motion to council for decision, excuse me. That council approve an extension to the lease of the porta potty at Roby Tufts Park for 4 months to the end of October 31st, 2024. Can I change that? So that's to the end of Devour and Valley Harvest.
What was the date, Jody?
I just said October 31st, 2024. I'm not sure why September 20th.
Okay.
Do I need to say something different?
October, okay, thank you. All right, seconder, thank you, Councillor Madeira Voss. Are there any comments with respect to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye, opposed, that's passed. And we do have a second motion. There'll likely be some discussion, but to have somebody to Deputy Mayor.
I can bring that forward. So I would move that committee of the whole forward the following motion to town council for decision that council approve moving the management of this file, porta potty file, to staff in accordance with provision of portable toilets in other town locations.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is there a seconder? Councillor Madeira Voss, are there any comments or discussion? Councillor McKay?
So if it moves to there, what Lindsay's working on a strategy. We actually don't have an operations plan, so I have actually no idea where that would sit in an operations plan. So I'm in favor of staff taking back a strategic look at that. I don't know if that means moving it to operational or not, or if it means direction to come back with the strategy. You know, we don't know.
So
So
those seem to be two separate things, right? That you're responsible for, staff responsible for the operations, but also there is a strategy that could involve more than operations. Am I correct?
Strategy is being picked away at. I don't have an understanding on timeline, but as council is aware, we're feeling the crunch of capacity more than ever before. So I can't commit to a timeline when that entire piece will come back for review. That would also need time to be operationalized and have budgetary considerations. So I think really the intent of the second motion is to say staff can keep coming back every few months and we can discuss that one portable toilet in that one location, or you can put back the decision-making for that one portable toilet to staff, and we will keep ensuring it's there if it is being used, as we do with all the other portable toilets in the community. So there are two pieces. So if you wanted to put a firm deadline on when you would want a access to public washroom strategy to come back, that would be the will of council to do that. It is underway currently, but as part of many other files that we're managing. So they would be two separate pieces still.
I'm a little bit afraid that it will get lost if we don't, and there's a turnover in October. So my thought would be could we say, let's keep it till the end of October and have a strategy and perhaps part of the budget deliberations, because whatever we do will cost money, and have it as part of that when we roll it out in October and November. Just so it comes back again, because, you know, things change and we'll have a new, see it as cute as you are. Yeah, well, we won't be there.
And acting CAO with your Robert's rules, it sounds like that would be an amendment.
An
And then
amendment
we
to the
would vote
motion.
on the amendment to the motion first. And then,
If everybody-
well, then if the amendment passes, then we'll vote on the new motion. So Councillor McKay, did you want? Okay, thank you. Councillor Palmer?
I just wanted to ask Director Shaw, does the what you've negotiated down at down for the washroom access, is that going to be 365 days a year, or is that only for the summer season?
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor Palmer, I think that portable toilets are harder to maintain in the winter months. I also think that we would have less need in that location in the winter months if we did not have programming from the oven and if people were not housed at that location. So I would consider this to be more of a watch file at this time and say, you know, we are certainly hoping that the pallet community in Kentville will be open soon. We know it's delayed. So I'm hesitant to comment on timelines. I think staff would be very comfortable removing that facility if we didn't feel it was being used or if it was really difficult to maintain. Again, the nuance of this is that we have now access to Railtown 24/7, but keeping in mind the challenges of folks who are living rough and that additional distance that might be required in January, I think that would be an important consideration to take before we removed that facility.
Thank you. Councillor McKay, did you want to make an amendment to that motion? Or do you want to see where the motion goes?
So I'm gonna look to Laura for a second. So if we leave this on the floor and it says it moves to operational, can I just simply add a second motion that says that a strategic look at permanent washroom facilities be looked at through the next budget?
Yeah, you can add that on.
Can we make that an amendment to this
Yes.
motion?
But do you want me to make it an amendment or separate?
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave this one.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Would somebody like to move this second one? It just moved. You're right, it was. Okay, if there are no other comments or questions, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, so that's passed. And Councillor McKay, you have a third one.
Sure. I would move, excuse me, allergies, that committee of the whole for the following motion to council for decision that a strategic look at permanent washroom facilities within the town be looked at as part of the upcoming budget process.
I will
Councillor
second that.
Butler, is there any questions or comments? Seeing none and moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. All right, thank you, Barb, but don't go anywhere. There's more, different topic. So 7B RFD 041-2024 Equity and Racism Plan and Advisory Committee. Barb.
That's great. Through the CAO, I just want to make sure I've pulled this up. Is this sharing?
Brittany, can you do the share button?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. This is exciting.
We can tell in your voice.
That we are here. Well, it's also, I mean, we've talked about this quite a lot, and what I want to share with you today is an update on where the province is at, on where municipalities are at, and where we are at as of today in Wolfville. So I've borrowed these slides from a training session that was put on by the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism last week. Part of that presentation was to deliver some news to us that we, unlike it says in my request for decision, we have now been prescribed under the Act, which has been something we have been anticipating for some time. So we have now actually been prescribed. What that means is that we have requirements under the Act. It's not negotiable. And the reason why municipalities and villages have been prescribed under the Act, specifically under the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act, is because communities are where change happens. And at the local level, as members of council know, this is really where decision-making matters the most. You folks are responsible, which is a little bit of a weight on your shoulders, but I think it's a good weight. So you are responsible for ensuring that this act comes to life, comes off the paper, and that we all work together to ensure that there's a positive shift go forward, starting at that community level. And let me do this. Can I move this to? Oh, there's my advancer. Thank you. So the Act recognizes that systemic hate, inequity, and racism can be caused by government and public bodies through policies, practices, and procedures. And these are things that may appear neutral, but they can have the effect of disadvantaging underrepresented and underserved groups. And by that specifically, to name it, we are speaking of Mi'kmaq communities, peoples of Indigenous descent, African Nova Scotians, people of African descent, persons with disabilities, the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, newcomers, and minority faith-based groups. That's who we are naming. That is who we are looking specifically to make change for. So, as you know, we have now been prescribed under the Act, and so I'm going to run through a few things that this will mean for us. So we are required in a way that's slightly different than what we are required to do through the Accessibility Act. So we do need to develop a plan by April 1. And by April 1, that plan needs to be published, which means we have a lot of work to do before then. It has to run through council, but we start with some engagement, and it has to be meaningful engagement with underserviced and underrepresented communities. The report, the plan will have to be publicly available in an accessible format. We're good with that piece. And it will need to be updated every 3 years. And that's similar to what we're doing with the Accessibility Act. So to take folks back in time, a number of years ago, we were invited to participate with the municipality of the County of Kings and work on their diversity through their committee and with their strategic path. And council made a decision at that time that we would kind of go in our own direction because of the uniqueness of Wolfville, that we are a town and gown community, that we have a significant international population on the campus of Acadia, and that we are just a very different place than the surrounding areas of the county. I still feel that was a really good decision to make. So at that time, and knowing that the act was in place and we would have some requirements go forward, but also because council felt it was important to start working in a meaningful manner to better support our communities, we did start looking at this. So Tom V. DeBass joined us. We did an engagement cycle. We did have some really good, important conversations. And from those conversations, we got kind of our 3 areas of work to begin on. So internal work, so some training, which we've been light on, fair, which I wear that one. We have been light on the internal training. We were also tasked staff with taking a look at potentially providing supports to international students. We have done a whole cycle with that, working with Aditi Sharma, lots of engagement on that. And we've come back with council's support of now what we are calling the Wolfville International Student Support Program. I'm happy to let you know it was in the CAO report, I believe, if I recall correctly, but we are looking to get that up and running end of August, beginning of September. And we're hoping to have students and community members matched prior to the Thanksgiving weekend. We have support from Acadia. This is going to make a big difference in our community. Council were also very supportive of breathing life back into the Soups and Sides program. And Soups and Sides is really an equity-based program, but it also creates an opportunity to remove barriers and bring people together to share food and to build relationships with folks that you might not build relationships with. And we know when we want to bring communities together and start to get beyond stereotypes and preconceived notions, we need to bring people together. And Soups and Sides is not just about food, it's also about those community building activities that happen around those tables. I'm also happy to update council and let you know that we now have a commitment from Mary Sweetman and from the Code program at Acadia, and they're going to be helping us to develop the sides portion of that program go forward. So we're getting a lot of support and collaboration for these very specific pieces. This will form part of the program piece that we'll touch on in our plan, but there's more to do than that. So we're pretty good around the horseshoe at understanding equity, but it's worth always speaking this. So to understand equity, we just have to understand that we don't all start at the same place. We all have different experiences. And in order to get everybody closer to that kind of level playing field so we can play well together, that's when we start to identify the supports that are needed. And we bring those supports in. Go back to the conversation we just had about the portable toilets. That's why that's an equity piece. We had folks in our community who had different experiences. They needed additional supports to be comfortable in this community, and council made sure that that was provided. That's showing that we are on the way to getting how this works. So inequity, of course, is when we talk about a state of unfairness or a lack of justice. And when individuals or groups are treated differently or unequally, and this can happen through just systemic reasons, and kind of more barriers being in place to opportunities, resources, rights, or outcomes, which is why we're always trying to use that lens of equity. So defining racism and anti-racism can be more challenging at times, but basically racism is, to name it, the unfair treatment, prejudice, or hatred by individuals, community, or institutions against a person or people based on their actual or perceived membership in a racial or ethnic group. And I'm reading this because it's a great definition. Racism also means having the power and carrying out that discrimination, so unfair treatment, hatred, or prejudice through institutional policies and practices. So anti-racism work then is the work of actively opposing racism as defined above by advocating for changes in the political, in economic, and in social life. And we achieve this through identification and elimination of racism by changing oppressive systems, structures, policies, practices, and attitudes. And this is really daunting. This is hard language, and it, I have no doubt, makes everybody feel anxious, but this is the work that we have to do go forward. So this again is from the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism. And I really like this when we think about why are we being asked to do this work? Why are we prescribed to do this work? So we start with the moral imperative. This is the right thing to do. And we understand that this is the right thing to do. It's challenging work, but it is the right thing to do. We also have a legal obligation. So it's the required thing to do because now we have been prescribed under the Act. But there's also the strategic imperative. So these are necessary things to do because of these outcomes. If we do this work, we will see improved social cohesion, we'll see an evolving population, we'll build public trust and confidence, we will see economic prosperity, and we will mitigate risk. Again, as I mentioned, when we started out through this process a number of years ago, we were really kind of starting to look at stuff from an EDI or an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens. But what the province has challenged us to do is to go further and actually look specifically at equity and anti-racism. And so this is now where we get into more than just this understanding of what programs are we going to offer. But this is where we start to look at, we need to do an internal assessment. Yesterday, I sent members of council an internal assessment tool that's been sent out to our management team a couple of weeks ago. And it shows you the framework that we're looking at and what those questions ask you, and you've got a week or so to respond to that. But what that asks you to do is to consider what's happening internally in the town as an organization and to kind of get a sense on a sliding scale of where you feel we are at. That helps us understand where we have to start from in order to move forward in some very specific areas. We will be, through this work, reviewing our laws and policies, so bylaws and policies. We will be reviewing resource allocation. So think about this morning. So your motion moving forward to council about the portable toilet, that is a resource allocation that you are moving forward. And as we move into the remainder of this term and moving forward into the new council term, that will be something we will be socializing with members. So really thinking about how resource allocation matters in order to do this work of building equity and working on anti-racism. It also does impact our programs and services. We can't offer everything to everyone. So when we're making those challenging decisions with limited resources, how do we ensure that every decision is going to change the lives of the folks in our community who have been historically underrepresented and underserved. It's a big shift, but I have great faith that everybody will just find this as second nature, go forward. So we, and I've just gone through all of that. So how we do this now is staff are working internally, and I will be reaching out to people as needed and pulling you into conversation. Conversations are happening at the management level, but part of what we need to do is start to frame our first plan. And all municipalities and villages across the province are working on this. I'm connected with a lot of my peers. We have additional supports in place through the Association of Administrators of Nova Scotia. It's easier to say amens, but I'm doing, thank you to our administrator. But we do have support through AMANS, and that support has been funded through Justice to help with this work. So one of the things that I am asking for today is that we, and I'm looking at Councillor Ingham, who's just controlling herself. This is like, this is her Santa, absolutely. So I'm here today basically to ask for your support as we start this work to pull together an advisory committee. This will allow us to ensure, along with all the other pieces that has to happen, engagement is going to continue as we build out our plan. But we need an advisory committee. We are not required through the Act to have one, but we've seen how effective it is through our accessibility committee. And we need that first person voice. We need that lived experience to support council in that decision making, to help us really understand that lens. Every person is different, and the more unique voices with that lived experience we can invite into this space, we will do better as a community. So I'm basically asking to for the go-ahead to start working on this. Terms of reference need to be developed. That will come back in September for your review and your input. And then we will go out and we will do our recruitment of committee members. So I am happy to answer questions now, if you have any.
There are questions, or did you want to get the motion on the floor? Questions? Let's do questions, and then I assume Councillor Ingham wants to put the motion on. Are there? Yeah, are there any questions? No. I just have one question. I think I read in something you said this is not a council committee, so it's not, unlike accessibility, it doesn't have a council member as chair, or am I wrong?
This is an advisory committee to council. My
It's more like the
preference,
design review committee.
my
or the-
preference would be to have a member of
okay.
council there as well as staff support.
Okay,
That, and I was working on that assumption.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. That was your question. I don't know where I saw it that it would be community. Maybe I read into.
I think we had, back in November, we had put a motion on the floor for a task force. And then Barb was waiting to see what the act was going to be, and we waited on that.
Okay.
So the motion is more, it's similar to accessibility
Yeah,
advisory.
okay.
It would be that, if I can compare it to that. I don't
It
like
is,
to compare.
it is
to
in the
accessibility.
RFD, pardon me. It is in the RFD too. That just says populated by community members.
Yeah, that's, I guess where I
But that's
read that. Okay. All right, thank you. Would you like to put the motion on the floor?
I would move that committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for a decision. That council approve the establishment of an equity and anti-racism advisory committee with terms of reference to be brought forward to council for approval at the September committee of the whole.
I will second that.
Comments or any other questions? Oh, go first. Go for it. You go first.
Thank you. That was it. Thank you. That's my only comment is a big thank you. It's a big thank you.
Your question, sorry. Okay, I was curious, when we populate this committee, we did a bunch of work with Tom B and with Aditi, and can we have the background information? Because there was big discussions and I think you did even Tomby did a presentation. So can we have those slides and the background information that went with that? Because there was discussion about things not being in it and all those kinds of things. So I think it's really important to know where we stand, where we start from, and then fill the gaps with those terms of references. So I'd be interested in seeing the information that was laid out in their reports as well, just for my own personal reference points. We didn't get those last time, I don't think. We got presentations, but not really the background, what are the meat of those documents.
I say the nodding of the head is yes.
Yes, through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay, I'm happy to provide those reports. I just want to ensure that I'm understanding the context. So you would like that before we start the discussion on the accessibility, or sorry, not the accessibility, the equity and anti-racism advisory committee terms of reference.
I think they go part and parcel. So if they could, if that was coming back in September, did you say? Then that would be fine.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. This is totally admirable. It's long overdue. But it's adding workload for staff, and that's already considerable. I'm just wondering, since the province has mandated all of this, whether they're offering any support, whether we would be able to like get somebody to help, or is there funding for anything?
Through Mayor Donovan to Deputy Mayor Elliott. So Justice has provided financial support to the Association of Administrators Nova Scotia. And so we will have a coordinator who will provide some support. There might be some funding available to do some engagement work. The schedule of work that needs to be done it's a very quick timeline. So we might be able to access some funding. I think we need to push ahead with this regardless. And this is daunting. This is a tremendous amount of work, and this is work that needs to be done in a meticulous manner. But at the same time, I think those of us who are working in this space are committed to doing whatever it takes to do this effectively, even with limited resources.
Well, bravo to you.
Councillor Ingham?
Thank you, Barb. As always, your passion, your dedication just shines through. Of course, I am totally in favor of this. I do agree with Councillor McKay that it would be nice to use Tanvi's report as a guiding, because she was out in the community. I remember I was even down at the market when I was talking to several people, most of them students actually, and it was a lovely talk, but sometimes the feedback wasn't so forthcoming. So I'm sure that there is more to the report that we can use as a guiding factor. I am really in support of this. As the chair of accessibility, there are some overlaps, but there's not as much overlaps in order to do this work. As you know, in accessibility, 50% of the committee has to be into the disabled community or be disabled themselves. So the one thing that you talked about, and I love that you talked about all the wins, because I had written down probably 15 wins that the town has had since I started here, and I was like, this is great. I can mention a few more. I mean, I can even mention Nick sitting over in the corner. Now I'm going to get his attention. Nick and Luke just won an award for the Memory Cafe as a dementia-friendly group, if you want to correct me on that. So that's the second award we've won. How do we integrate that and even to accessibility and to diversity? Both the plans would be coming at the same time, Barb. Yeah, so that's a lot of work. And also, as we discussed it at accessibility in the last meeting, that's a lot to put on the accessibility committee, that, which isn't represented in the same way as diversity. There are, again, some overlaps, but we really need to have that lived experience on that committee. And that's one thing I think that you didn't discuss. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really in favor of having a committee so we can support council on the decisions that we make moving forward. So thank you.
Councillor McKay?
I don't have the MOU in front of me either that we have with Acadia, but they have, what is our connection there, and will we be working on that together? Yeah.
I'm so happy that you asked that through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay. Excellent question. We've had numerous discussions over probably the past year about partnering on a plan. The unexpected turn of events under this act is that only towns or municipalities and villages have been prescribed. So other public sector bodies have not yet been prescribed. We're kind of leading this. We get to be the first cohort to take this on. As such, they are not required to do this. Of course, we know that they are doing a significant amount on campus, and through the MOU and through additional actions, we are receiving significant support in our work from Acadia. So Acadia has committed some funding to the Soups and Sides program now, which is great. Acadia faculty and staff are stepping up to support with the Wolfville International Student Support Program. And some of the staff, some of you have had the pleasure of meeting Doten, who is probably going to be so sick from having me reach out constantly. But Doten, on behalf of the students that he is tasked with supporting, he is providing information and support to us, and that really important direct line of communication where we can really get information quickly. So all of these pieces are coming prior to our plan being drafted and approved by council. So I feel that while Acadia is not at the same place we are through a legislated lens, they are providing a significant amount of support. And quickly on that note, back to what Councillor Ingham was saying, the province did allow us to do one plan for equity, anti-racism, and accessibility. But in discussion with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, we felt that it would be important, especially as this first plan is being done for equity and anti-racism, to keep the two separate. That said, ableism is a big part of what we are examining through the equity and anti-racism work that we're doing. So we will have two plans. It will be a lot of work. I'm going to be leaning into every single resource that I can identify. And a wonderful piece for council to start on is reach out to your contacts, let them know that this work is happening. And really, we need to welcome people into this space to help us get a plan that will be the perfect fit for our community.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from council, or not? Are you ready for the vote? All right, the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That is passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. You get a little break. Okay, I don't know who, I guess Beth, you would be doing this. RFD 039 2024, Bay Valley Waste Resource Management Debt Guarantee for 2024-25 capital program.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. As you all know, each year we participate with the Valley Waste Resource Management. They presented a budget back in February for operating expenses. They also presented some of their capital. The RFD that's before you is to ask for the municipality's agreement with the debt guarantee for capital investments, for capital asset purchases for the fiscal year 24-25. The total that they're planning to purchase is $1.735,000. And our portion of it is 8.76%, which equates to 151,000 and change. Apologize, let me get it in front of me again. One of the questions I went back to Valley Waste Resource Management because I looked at their budget and they had if anyone might have a question, their budget was based on estimates and our percentage of proration was at 9.85. This percentage is at 8.76. The response I received from them was because the assessments were not complete, these were estimates they were using in their budget. Now they have the correct assessment roll. So these are the corrected proration percentages. So the total amount that they're requesting for the municipality of Wolfville is $151,986. It will go into the spring debenture. It's a similar process that we do each year in order to fund our capital purchases as well.
Okay, looking over on this side, I don't know whether, well, I was going to say Councillor
guess-
McKay is
oh.
the alternate for Valley Waste and Audit. So which of you would like to? It could be either.
You read it now.
Okay, Karen. We'll share.
Go ahead, Councillor McKay.
So equity minded this morning. I would move the committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for decision, that council guarantees a share of the Valley Waste Resource Management Authority's temporary borrowing resolution capital for the fiscal year 2024-25 in the amount of $1,735,000, with Wolfville's guarantee repayment share being 8.76%, equal to the amount of $151,986, as per attached partner guarantee resolution form.
And Councillor
second
Butler will
that.
second that. Is there any discussion? Question? All those in,
Oh, wait, I do.
oh, you do.
So,
Go ahead, Councillor Butler.
it's because I was, if I was planning to read it, is it possible at the next meeting we have to read that is to branch out the TBR and the FY? The abbreviations, can you actually put it in
Absolutely.
temporary boring
Absolutely.
That's why I was like, what is FY, 4 years?
I noticed it when
Fiscal-
Councillor McKay was reading it. I
Yeah.
got it at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. Channeling a former councillor, I think. Okay, no other questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. Now, we have the addition one-time operational grant for rugby. Nick, are you doing that?
Brittany, can you put 7D up on the screen?
Good morning, Mayor Donovan and council. Morning. This
Good
is
morning.
a one-time operational funding request. Apologies for the late addition. It did come in through a different email channel earlier than I received it. So there was just a little bit of a mix up in how this was getting to council, but we wanted to bring it forward due to the date of the actual event. It's at the end of July, beginning of August, hosted at Acadia. It's a national rugby tournament, the Canadian Championships for under 19 men's and women's. It's a fairly prestigious tournament. A lot of high profile athletes will be there and all the spectators that come along with it. They're requesting $5,000 as a one-time request. And when we went and looked in the budget for where this could come from, there was a little bit of a difference this year in how the budget was made up, in that there are other projects sort of ate up some of the money that had previously been set aside for one-time requests like this. So there is actually not an allocation in the budget, so this would have to come from operational reserves. Just so that's clear. It's all hosted at Acadia. I've been in touch with some of their staff there and they feel like it'll be fairly self-contained at Acadia, although people will certainly come and visit the town. But in terms of serving the people and the spectators and the participants, that Acadia is very well suited to handle all of those things. Not a lot of other real information. I guess I'd be happy to take questions that I may or may not be able to answer.
Why don't we do questions? Because I have a feeling there are a few.
Mhm.
Councillor Madeira Voss?
So I must have I read somewhere where I thought there was 17,000 in the budget.
You're right.
Which, so,
11.
or 11,000.
11,000.
That there was money.
Yes.
And so I'm a little confused about.
You are correct. Yesterday I had responded that I thought there was $11,000. Nick and I went through it later on in the day. There was $11,000 for community partnerships, which has already been utilized. There originally in budget version 1 and 2, there had been $24,000 set aside for undesignated events. That was under the CAO and the, for the general admin, Department 190. That was removed when Soups and Sides was reintroduced into the budget in order for us to balance the budget. We had $250,000 of a deficit, a planned deficit that we had to balance. And that was some of the monies that we utilized, unfortunately, to balance the budget. So those funds are no longer there. There are no resources in the budget. If the funding goes forward, it would have to come from reserves.
So, and there's also been no funding in the CAO budget. That, I know that is a smaller amount.
For that particular designation, you're correct. There are other funds in the CAO budget under contracted services, for instance. Should council choose to reclassify those funds, we could potentially do that as well.
So if we were to take it out of reserves, because I know this is a short timeline, could we then go back and review how we could replenish what we're taking out of reserves from an examination of what's in the CAO budget?
Going forward, as there's financial quarterlies are presented to council, we'll have a better idea where we actually stand, actual expenditures versus budgeted expenditures, and there'll certainly be more transparency at that time to be able to evaluate should there be additional funds that we can utilize for this type of purpose.
Councillor McKay?
So I have the same question, I think. But there is, so there is funding available for Soups and Sides through Acadia. And there's another funding source that I passed on to Barb's also. And we've talked about the WBC maybe supporting some of it too. So if there was funds coming in,
Thank you.
so it was taken, the extra budget was put into Soups and Sides, is that what I heard? Okay,
Right.
so if we found more funding sources for other programs, this could go into that bucket and we could potentially counterbalance it throughout the year, for lack of a better way.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, the budget is certainly it's a preliminary budget. In finance, you can certainly reforecast based on changes and new information that comes forward or new needs that come forward. And at the same time, if we were to have a deficit at the end of the fiscal 24-25, that's replenished through operating reserves as it is, and it goes in front of council for that decision as well.
Excuse me, Councillor Palmer?
Oh, I just like an operational question for Nick. Nick, are all the games going to be at the big field or are they down in the dike fields? Do you know?
I know at least most of the games are at the dike fields, if not all of them. Speaking with Rich Johnson, he said it was all down at the dikes. I wouldn't be surprised if they had maybe a championship game on the big field or something, but yeah, it'll be largely at the dike fields.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. You go ahead. No?
No, I was just
Councilor
gonna say, if you
Devan?
want me to put the motion on.
I just have yeah, go ahead, because mine is a comment, not a question. So if you'd like to put the motion on, that's good.
Okay. I would move that the committee of the whole forward the following motion to council for decision. The council consider approving a 5,000 one-time operational grant contribution to Rugby Nova Scotia to support the hosting of the 2024 Canadian Rugby Championships.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Are there any comments?
Just
Councillor McKay.
On the motion, should it say consider or just that council approve a $5,000? Because consider approving, it
It's-
sounds like we're just gonna think about it.
I think it's too late to consider at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I would
friendly
change that
amendment,
to
even though we
approve.
don't have those. We'll just
Yeah. To approve.
Yeah, we'll say it can't.
So that,
We don't want to have emotions.
so that the council approve
Approve.
a 5,000 and one-time operational grant.
Okay. Are there any comments? I have a comment. I am in support of this, but I was confused by this particular item because as has been said, yes, stage profits did come in under this, but it came in during the budget process. Way back, probably more than two terms ago, we used to get the capital grants anytime. And so we changed that policy so that the big capital grants come during the budget process. I'm wondering if when this grant is, I would hope that when we are looking at these grants, either that same change could be made so that we know upfront how much money we're going to have to move around, or conversely, maybe something of this size should be an operating grant. I'm not making a motion or stating, but it was a little confusing and then made more confusing by identifying that there was money in these accounts, just to clean it up. But that's my only comment, because I think it was confusing for a few of us as to why this wasn't just a staff allocation. So. Other comments? Oh, Barb, I need my different glasses on to see you and you're.
That's okay. I just wanted to note and share for awareness with council that part of the confusion with this comes from the fact that this was something historically that was managed by our Director of Parks and Recreation. So this really represents one of a significant number of orphan files that have kind of been scattered around different staff departments without kind of increasing our resources to manage them. So I share that with you for awareness because that really speaks to the level of confusion that we have around these items when they come in, who approves it, we pull the policy, we're looking at budget. So go forward as we start to clearly identify these orphan files, so to speak. I think it's appropriate to determine who will manage them and how they will be resourced effectively. So again, I just want to make that clear. It has been discussed. I just don't want, this is not for Nick to wear. We all do our best to kind of manage these pieces as they come in. But that really is the explanation as to the level of confusion around this.
Thank you for that. And I would say that you're right. I hadn't called them orphan files, but there are a bunch of things in that portfolio that are falling through the cracks and something for maybe the next council to take a look at in terms of resourcing. But thank you for that, Barb. Councillor Butler?
Just a comment. So in terms of, if this is approved, will there be some sort of acknowledgement of the town's contribution during the championships? Either within a signage or?
I can't remember what's in the policy, but typically we provide like a logo and ask for acknowledgement in some form, whether it's a verbal acknowledgement. I'm sure that they already have a few of their sponsors listed in some of their materials. So I think that would be an easy ask.
Okay. Just checking.
I
Thank you.
think we've asked, I know we haven't gotten to that yet, but for the capital grants at the town, because we haven't
As
typically,
Official announcements. and
yeah,
stuff
it's
like that.
typically gotten recognition, but other organizations and other levels of government do. So I think it's a good point.
Yeah.
Councillor Ingham?
I also noticed that in their financials that the WBDC has given $5,000 also, so if this goes through, it seems like we're well representing the rugby. And this is something that's coming to us, you know, fairly quickly too. I mean, had it come sooner, we would have maybe had more discussion on it, but.
Other comments? I see no hands up there. Councillor McKay?
So what would our communication be on this? Because then it will, I'm assuming it'll be a fairly well-attended event. And then just, I know Jeremy's on vacation this week at the WBDC, but making sure that all the businesses and our residents know that this is going to happen, because if it's quite busy downtown, that would be good to know. It'd be wonderful, but good to know.
Through Mayor Donovan to Councillor McKay, Nick, I'll handle this. I've had no awareness of this. Events Acadia has not reached out. We've had no communications. So from my perspective, this was a shock. We've not been asked for the things that we would normally provide for a large event. To the best of my knowledge, we haven't been asked to provide additional washroom facilities or additional garbage cleanup, things that we tend to do when we're having these big events. So I don't know about any street banner applications coming in. It's a complete surprise. Nobody has reached out. So at this point in time, I would say I don't have anything to communicate, unfortunately, because we haven't been invited to share those duties with Rugby Nova Scotia or with Events Acadia.
Your assumption that Events Acadia is actually managing those logistics?
Events
don't know.
Acadia has their logo on the proposal that came to us for consideration. That is the indicator that I would have that Events Acadia is part of this. But again, nobody from Events Acadia, and unless they've reached out through Nick, but nothing's come through comms as it normally would. So I don't know if there are plans in place as Dan Stovall would normally work on. Really, this hasn't come to our management meetings. I don't know if Alex's teams have any awareness. Normally, we would have a dialogue about an event of this size in advance so that we can provide those almost as services in kind that we would normally provide when Events Acadia is doing a large thing in town.
You're absolutely right, because also with the other ones, Events Acadia, like the music program, and I would, usually Tanya reaches out and asks for a letter of support. But yeah, I've heard nothing.
I would
Tanya
just,
is gone. She's left.
I did not know that.
Yes, so Tanya,
Oh,
with the director of Events Acadia, has taken a position with, probably not mine, well, I think it's probably somewhere else. So she is no longer there.
okay.
and I would just say, sorry, to interrupt, that when I asked about if this isn't listed in the Events Acadia website, it's not an Events Acadia led event. It's the nonprofit Rugby Nova Scotia group that's basically hiring Acadia to host this event, if that makes sense.
Really good whole information and not good information to hear. I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope it's a good job that she's going to. Good. All right. Okay, breath. Other questions or comments? Question, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed unanimously. All right. Let me get my papers. Okay, just,
we did have it, we said we would put it in for number 17.
yep.
But if you wanted to wait and do it after.
No, I'm just looking for my papers. Okay, here we are. Okay, it has been suggested that that the staff, oh, that's not staff report for discussion. That's
Yeah,
why
that's why
I would put it down there.
Yeah.
Yes, never mind. Forget that. All right, we're going to Does anybody need a break? Are we good? We're good, okay. Committee reports external. Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, because I think I miscommunicated with you, Laura, and I apologize on that. So the trails is there. There is none for the WBDC because it was the AGM, not the AVTC's AGM. So, and we were all at the WBDC AGM and it was a lovely evening. Wonderful evening. Yes. Yes, delicious evening.
But nothing on the trails, or did you?
The trails is in there.
Is in there, so you're good, okay. I have nothing to add on the IMSA. We had a special meeting that I think most of us were in attendance, that we did extend the pilot project for 1 year to June, at the end of June of 2025. So that they can continue to work on their governance projects. But other than that, my report as submitted, we have removed rec task force. Public input. I'm
Mayor Donna,
assuming.
can I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Can I do a small verbal report for diversity? Only because I wasn't able to get that report in. If it goes to the next committee of the whole, it's September, everything is going to be passed. There wasn't like a whole lot of discussion, but I do want to bring up a few things. Sorry for that. Yeah, so we had a presentation from the Valley Regional Hospital Foundation, Karen Terrio. They're looking for new board members. They're trying to make the board more inclusive. Right now, they seem to do word of mouth recruiting, and who's really good at fundraising, they seem to be on there, but they're looking for more of a diverse committee to represent that. So she came and did a presentation on that. So if there's any ideas or anybody would like to be on that board, or, feel free to reach out to Karen. And also there is one more event. It's called Party in the Park. It is at the Waterville Recreation Center, and it's basically to feature like all the seasonal agricultural workers. There's a soccer tournament, there's food, there's fun. It's really well attended. So that would be on August the 18th from 12 to 4, if anybody wants to participate. And that was it. I think they had the returning officer talk about the election, and that was it. So
Okay, thank you.
any questions, feel free to reach out.
Questions? All right, anybody online for public input, David?
Sorry,
So
we missed 7E.
that's going to be 11, because it's
Oh, you
not a
moved it to
staff
11?
report. It's not a staff report, so that's why it's down there. So that brings us to 10, which is election campaign lawn signs, a request for agenda item. Councillor McKay.
Thank you. I added this on, I know the election's coming up, obviously, and we were having lots of discussions on equity and diversity and inclusivity. And we had lots of conversations on active transportation and climate change. I was trying to think of the words, climate change initiatives that we've been working on. And I just thought I would throw it out there because it was a hot topic during the last election. And I think whether it was policy or just general consensus, I think in Halifax, Yarmouth put it on the table. I did there was a bunch of, Kentville did actually too, to limit the amount of signs. Certainly wouldn't want to ban them because that would limit freedom of speech. But from an equity standpoint, you shouldn't need to have an influx of cash to make those signs. And it does put people with financial means ahead of others. So I just thought I would throw it out for discussion to see if it was of interest. No, it would basically be if we pass it just an honor system type of thing. I don't think anyone's going to go around and count signs. Don't expect, I guess it would be Laura to go around and count signs. That would be a bit extravagant. But just sort of on an honor basis of saying, let's try and do our best to be equitable and sustainable. Throwing it out there.
And there is no motion. Is there?
If there was, if I could put a
You could,
motion,
but
if people
but
wanted it,
yeah, I didn't
if-
see a
yeah.
motion, so I just was clarifying that I
Yeah.
didn't miss something.
we would probably require one should we want to do that,
Right.
but
Fair
I just was throwing it out for discussion just to see what people thought.
Councillor Palmer.
How many signs are you thinking of, Councillor McKay?
I was thinking 10. I don't actually know how much they cost anymore. I didn't do signs the last time either, for the same reason. So I don't know. how much they cost, but I just was thinking 10 was a reasonable amount.
I can tell you that, this was 4 years ago. If you had 100 signs, they're $8 a sign. If you have 10 signs, they're $80 a sign. So you get a bulk. So
That's $800 though. That's
Yeah.
someone's paycheck.
yes.
Some,
Guess I have a question.
Councillor Paul.
Is there something in like the election documents about what you can use for, I don't want to call it promotional material, but I guess it kind of is in terms of posters, buttons, signs, clothing? Like, is there anything
car wraps.
like where if there is a motion where like this is a motion that we're approving for, but there are going to be new people coming in to run. So where would they find that information? Is it, will this go as part of a bylaw or what, like that? Just in terms
Yeah,
of, I don't know how it differs for other elections, for
Yeah,
provincial or federal.
I believe it would be when people come to do their paperwork, it would be a sort of,
You
here's
are
the
limited
kind
to
of
this.
guidelines.
Okay.
I don't know, we couldn't enforce it, like, I don't know how we could, and
Yeah.
thank you to councillor McKay for not suggesting that I go down the streets counting signs, but so yeah, it would be as councillor McKay suggested, it would be an honour system and just a guideline, like, here's what we expect, maybe.
Okay, because I remember that there is something in there about what needs to be on the signs in terms of authorized by this. So I know there's something there, but of course it's been 4 years. I like this. I think that this lawn signs are they're nice and everything, but I find they're very distracting for drivers, and it limits how many will get stolen. They are expensive. I think there are other ways, a lot of free ways to be able to communicate with the community that that you're running. I did not use lawn signs last time because I'm cheap. And it also motivated me to find other ways. We were going through a pandemic, so we had to be very limited how we interact. A lawn sign is publicity, but it just motivated me to figure out another way to go out and say hi to folks, stand 18 feet away from someone with a mask and just wave. I like the environmental sustainability portion of this. I think that is because having been part of provincial and federal elections, the amount of waste of signs that can never be used again. Like well, you'd have to alter it, so there would still
my
be.
first 2 terms I used it.
Okay, so I mean, provincial and federal, they're almost impossible to reuse again. So there is a tremendous amount of waste. I think at the municipal level, we can sort of set an example to other levels of government to say they're not overly necessary. It is a way to put your name out there, but there's a million other ways to do that. So I like this. I don't know how it will or where it will go, but I do sort of support that environmental sustainability aspect of it. And yeah, I'm anxious for discussion.
I must say I did tussle with this one a little bit, but looking at the equity, diversity, inclusion lens, I have been very outspoken of trying to get a very diverse council and going out there and saying, you know, you have some skill set, would you consider running? I think it's always good to have a good representation. But then the terms of it, I guess that we would need to discuss. So looking at that lens, look at the environmental lens, I'm for that, but then I look at it just as Mayor Donovan said, I put signs up the last time, so I would reuse them. Then I'm also thinking of the size of the sign. So you're saying 10, would there be a stipulation on the size of the sign? You could put a massive sign up, that's one, or you could do 10 massive signs, which is still a lot of money. So there was that aspect. And then there was also the aspect of people making their own signs. They could put them on their window, et cetera, et cetera. What about posters? Those are all things. So I think I'm not opposed to it, but I'm thinking that the terms need to be reined in, because putting a motion on the floor that's not concise and that's not worded correctly. I think we've got into trouble with that before. So I would like to, if this is something that we're gonna move forward on, I agree that you can't have anybody policing it, so it's on the honor system. There's a whole bunch of factors that go into this, so I think that needs to be, I think we need to discuss that, the size of it. And then, like I said, I could put my signs out. I'm not gonna pay a dime. I've already had them, as Mayor Donovan said, she reused hers, so there's a point against that. But when I'm looking at, you know, if they cost a certain amount of money, and as you go on, sometimes it's cheaper to buy 20 than it is to buy 10. So I think the terms need to be set a little bit stricter.
Deputy Mayor?
In principle, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It really is. Those of us that have a few signs already, well, they're there, they exist. But in terms of environmental sustainability, I'd like to see it not as a mandate through a motion, but honor system all the way around. Like, can we just agree that we would like to move forward in a sustainable fashion? Is that possible? Without a motion?
Yeah.
Or with a motion?
Councilor Madeira Voss?
I agree. I mean, I think in principle, this makes sense because it's not enforceable, because it's on an honor system. I'm not sure why we would even need a motion. I think we could just say we have consensus that when people come to register, we may have a note or something encouraging people to consider, you know, their form of promotion or their form of, I don't know, I would call it promotional material. Is it another word? And, you know, consider limiting the use of paper product. I mean, I don't think it's just the signs. I think it's leaflets, you know, it's things that you can put in at the post office or when you go around. I mean, there's so many ways in which campaigning contributes to stuff that is used. I think the signs is a very visible one, but I think there are other ways as well that people are. So, you know, that we could just simply have a note, you know, that the town asks people to consider being conscientious when it comes to sustainability and environment in terms of the amount of promotional material they use or something. I don't know how we would word it, but I don't see what we would achieve with a motion, given that this is something that's not at all enforceable.
I think from an environmental sustainability point, that certainly does hit it. I'm not sure what it does for an equity standpoint. Environmentally, but from, if there was someone who was, you know, would be really good at this job, but perhaps was new to their career or new to here or new to this country and didn't have the means to, the monetary means, I would hate to see someone not be able to run based on that, what they might feel as prohibitive to running. But you all of you are doing some sessions. I was trying to think of the word again, sessions on doing that. So maybe, and you know, some people used signs last time, some people didn't. I don't think it is truly indicative of getting elected either. So that's why I was like, if it was everyone was on the same playing field, it would be just an equity standpoint. I like to see as many as people possible.
Yeah, just as you mentioned, Barb and I are going to be holding some sessions for candidates who are curious, so we can certainly make it part of that discussion. And also, you know, people are very familiar with social media and things, so it's other ways of advertising. They may not have the funds to do signs, but there are other ways, and we can certainly promote that as well.
I'm of two minds. Signs are pain. Quite aside from being expensive, they are. And one of the reasons you need to order a lot is because they get damaged. I think I replaced 25 signs. Ultimately decided not to put them in the core because that's where they were getting damaged on a daily basis. I saw a photo of one of my signs is in somebody's residence room. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that was something. So they're very quite aside from the cost, they're very time consuming for your committee to be replacing signs and to be monitoring signs. So on that, I I would be happy not to have them. The first time I ran, councilors didn't have signs. When I came, and I wasn't, unlike Councillor Butler and the deputy mayor, I was fairly new to town, not particularly well known. I came back from the cottage that weekend, and Gary Balcom, who had run for mayor the term before and had signs, had just wiped out for mayor. And so I saw all these signs and my thought was, oh, I need to have signs. So I went out and got signs. It made a huge difference for somebody who was unknown in the town. And if you read the Yarmouth information, one of the counselors says, lack of signs benefits the incumbent because we are already known. An unknown person doesn't have their name out there. So there's that. Yarmouth did actually do a bylaw motion. They were going to be legally challenged. It wasn't enforceable. And they didn't have the time to rescind their bylaws. So they just stayed it or something. Kentville, based on Yarmouth, also brought it forward. Their lawyer told them it's not enforceable. And I do believe that was no signs as opposed to 10 signs. And so that didn't pass. As I say, I am of two minds. They are a pain in the neck. One of the problems would be if we all agreed and followed that, but somebody who's not sitting around this table is not bound by that. And then you may be in a situation of, and it's much more expensive to order 10 signs and then another 10 signs, I think, than if you are ordering 20 or 50 signs. So I agree with the spirit of the motion, but I think there are some issues that it's not as simple as that. So I'm not really sure where I fall on this. I fall directly in the middle. So those are my comments. But I don't know. I guess it's if somebody wants to put a motion on the floor, you could see where it goes. I don't know.
Is it in terms of, I don't know the existing wording in the documents right now because it's been 4 years, but is it possible just to get that and what kind of an update would be in there for anyone new coming in? If we just want to say, we want to move towards something more environmentally sustainable, try to limit, the waste, that kind of stuff. Is it possible to get what's in there now for wording and what wording would be in there for anyone coming in that's new?
Yes, we can look at the forms that we had and we can certainly update them to reflect the conversation today. So that's, do you want them to come back to council before?
Yes.
I'm assuming that anyone can walk in today, as of today, and say, I want to run and sign their paperwork. No, not
today.
yet.
No, not yet.
Oh, not
Yeah,
till, okay, so
September,
there
but
is
we
time
can-
for it to
yeah.
come back to
I
us.
could,
Okay,
I don't know, bring it back for council. Yeah,
okay.
bring it back to council.
I'd be comfortable with because I don't know the original wording at all.
I think one of the problems is that without any press, the debates have not been well attended, and of course during COVID, but even before COVID, they were not very well attended. So, it does limit the opportunity, particularly for new people, to get their name out. I personally think door to door is important, but then you have to leave something, and so yeah, it's an issue. So Laura, you're going to bring something back for council and we can have further discussion. Yeah, would encourage people there's lots on if you Google CBC on the Yarmouth situation and Kentville too. All right, is that good for that? Councillor McKay, you're good for that? And then number 11, I guess, is Councillor Palmater. You want to rescind the motion passed at the June council. Let you take
Yeah.
that.
Good.
I don't know if our acting CAO, I know she's been doing some investigation of wording, rescinding or reconsidering. They're a little different.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is, councillor Palmer, your request is if it's to rescind the motion or to amend the motion or.
I would like to totally rescind it.
Okay.
I think we should totally rescind it. That's what I think we should do.
So do you want the motion to rescind?
Yes, I do.
Laura,
Yes, it
can
would
you
have to be a
explain what
motion.
happens with rescinding?
Yes, so the motion to rescind would remove basically the decision that was made by council at the June meeting with regard to the subject. So for wording, you would need a mover and seconder and you move to rescind motion, I think it was 22-6-24, and whatever that motion was.
And that needs a vote of 5 to pass, unless we do a notice of motion and bring it back at council.
It's the rules.
Yeah.
Does the person who made the motion have to do that?
No,
Or
it can be anyone.
Anybody who
Or, yeah.
voted in favor of it.
And it was carried unanimously at the time, so.
Anybody. So if you rescinded it, it cancels it.
Yeah.
I guess so. I just wanted to make it clear that even though we don't follow the Robert's rules, we are reading Robert's rules here. If you rescind a motion at the current meeting, it takes a 2/3, and Laura says that's 5. If you make a notice of motion to rescind at a future council, then it would only take a simple majority support. So 5 people need to vote, assuming his motion is to rescind, to rescind.
That's a good question. So does a notice of motion need to, so if you did a notice of motion now, does the motion move forward to council or does it move
Yes.
forward to the next committee of the whole?
Council.
So you could do a notice of motion to rescind for the council meeting in July. And then
And if
the
that-
motion would have to, so it's just a notice of motion to rescind, and then we can draft a motion to bring forward to council for July. Because you don't have to read the motion, it's just a notice of a motion to rescind.
I would read the motion. I would say if you're rescinding it, I would say that you are moving to rescind motion, whatever the number was and whatever the motion was. Like I would say.
But
that.
not a new motion, like,
No.
so it's just a notice. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we rescind the motion now, it just stops. Nothing needs to go to council.
Yeah, it's done. Yeah.
It's done. So if we give a notice to rescind, then that rescinding process happens at council in 2
In July,
weeks.
yes.
But otherwise,
And the only difference is 1 vote. You
right,
need 4 votes at council, 1 vote, or 5 votes here.
okay. So it's either decided here that it's going to be, or we delay that decision. I mean, it may or not be rescinded, but either way, the outcome that's expected by the motion is the same.
Deputy Mayor?
I'm not sure that we've had enough information to decide on rescinding or not. I think we should investigate a little more, maybe invite someone who has more expertise in to talk to us. I'd like to revisit it as opposed to, cut it off at the knees. So that's my position.
Councillor Ingham?
Yeah, so I think we need to have a discussion on why, Councillor Palmer wants to put the motion on the floor to rescind. We did not have fulsome discussion on it. We were a bit confused. I rewatched the tape. It was confusing. When Isabel read it, she wasn't sure. I think we all have really good intentions on all of this. And I think we can all sit around the table and we want to make sure we're supporting everybody. We just did not have fulsome discussion. We did not have any sort of called experts. We didn't have our stakeholders here and it felt a little bit rushed. So by rescinding it, it's not meaning that it's not going to come back to the table with a better motion after we've had it. So I think we should, you requested to put it on. So Ian, do you have the motion on there to read as a rescind and then put it on the table? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do any of this. I'm saying how we discussed it wasn't fulsome. And I'll just go back to talking about the signs. I didn't want to rush it because sometimes if we don't have proper discussion, and it came to us at council, right? Not committee of the whole, where we discuss things more. And I'm not saying that we're not going to do it, but I feel like the motion was rushed, and I'll include myself on there. I didn't do my due diligence. I don't know enough about leases, and I need more information. I'll just say that about myself. So Ian, if you have the motion there and you want to read it, you can put it on the table. Is that fair enough?
Sure, I don't know if this is a right motion or not, but I'll say that this is what I wrote down anyway. I would move that council rescind its motion of June 25th in regards to a letter to government short-term leases. Nice and simple.
I think for clarity, and especially based on what happened at the June meeting regarding this motion, it would be helpful to read the full motion, but maybe we can pull that up on the screen for.
Yeah, now the full motion, the words
The
that were
motion that
read
was
or,
passed.
okay, not the
so not
motion
the
that was
motion
in the
package,
package, which
yeah.
is the problem.
Maybe we could take a short break and I could pull that
Okay.
up on the screen.
Take a short break as we get things up on the screen.
You home, Jenny? What are you up to, Jenny?
Okay, we are recorded. Ian Brittany is putting up the motion and if you want to have a motion to rescind, we'd ask that you actually read the motion as part of that. Can you see that? Are you there, Ian? That's the motion that was read. Yes.
So you just want me to read the second part of it?
Well, you
there?
say I guess you'd add in the beginning, if you want to rescind, I move to rescind the motion passed at June 25th. Was it 25th? 25th council, and then read the motion.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I would move that the committee of the whole rescind the motion passed at the committee meeting of January 25th, that council direct that a letter be sent from council to all appropriate levels of government and to all appropriate provincial organizations in support of reviewing current legislation related to fixed term leases to create a fair and more stable rental situation for Nova Scotia.
And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Madeira Voss. Is there any discussion? I don't think your light's on, Wendy. Deputy Mayor.
Oh, okay. Feel like I'm in a bit of a quandary here because I think rescind is too harsh. I prefer reconsideration so that we could have some expertise in and have a more fulsome look at both sides of this issue and not just throw it out with the bathwater. Is that possible?
Not until this motion is through. Am I right? This we have.
Yeah, and just so you know that this topic, this subject can come back on at a later date should someone wish to put it back on an agenda with more information or another plan on sharing that information. So even if it's rescinded tonight, today.
Councillor Madeira Voss.
When we had this before, I was supportive, I think in spirit of having a closer look or asking the provincial government to have a closer look at its tenancy policies, of which this is one. And after our vote, and I thought about the letter that we wrote or that was sent regarding the guaranteed basic income, which is where I was kind of drawing some parallels, that this was that kind of consideration. The difference for me was in process. With the guaranteed basic income, I personally had a little bit of, I do about leases as well because I'm a landlord, so I'm not saying I don't understand this one, but there's some knowledge, but we'd had Roger Tatlock make a presentation and all of us had received that presentation from Roger at the same time because he made a presentation to council. And so what caused me to kind of think back about what we did with this one were all the pieces that I felt were missing from the process. And I know that a few people spoke about information that they'd heard at a meeting, but it was not information that all of us had received at the same time. And so I'm actually in favor of this motion to rescind and just start with bring back more information, create a new motion, if that's what we want, that whatever is the result of the information. But I think it's more difficult to go with an existing motion to move, we get into semantics, we get into a lot of things that I think complicate the issue much more and wording. And I think we really all need to look at this with a more comprehensive and fulsome scope, if you like. And so I think there's nothing wrong with rescinding and saying, look, we all agreed it was unanimous because we all care very much about this issue. This is important, the whole question of tenancy, the whole question of housing. I mean, we all care about housing very much, and this is one piece of that. So it's not to say to rescind it, it's not to say that we don't care about the situation that either tenants or landlords find themselves in. It's simply to say that we need a more, in my view, expansive process and make sure that all of us receive the same information at the same time, that we have a fulsome discussion where we can really all hear all those arguments together. So before we come up with a motion that I think would reflect that. I just, yeah, anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Councillor McKay?
Yeah, I think I feel pretty much exactly the same way as Councilor Madeira Voss. It was whether it was the motion that was put in the package or the motion that was read, there was lots of discussion around bringing forth more information and learning more about it and getting these, sort of sussing out the situations and then, us all wanting to be a piece of like, what will that letter actually say? And then this one says, well, all levels of government and all stakeholders, who in the heck is going to determine who that is? I mean, everything is just so vague, and the process, yeah, I think because we care about housing so much and people's are being hurt in certain situations, that I think we jump the gun a smidgen. So I too will be in favor of rescinding the motion. But if there was direction to come back, say in the fall with presentations or other things because we did discuss Dr. Sweetman coming back. I think there was another gentleman's name that was used, to forget his name right off. Thank you. But having, and maybe it's part of another working group or something to that effect, the non-market, maybe, I don't know, maybe those things come together and in some way and bring forth some suggestions on how we might move forward. But yeah, I concur.
You do the vote when I start speaking. Yeah. I am. I am not in support of this, although I do agree with the sentiments. And I'm going to read the original motion that, had it been read, I think we would not be here. First sentence we have. And the second line was, as well, that council use its platforms to inform our broader community of the realities of the current housing and rental situation. And I think this is an important, that creates both difficulties for some property owners with respect to business and property costs and an untenable rental environment for many low-income renters. So before I read the last sentence, I understand, I've talked to landlords, not in this regard, but over the last months, that the current previous 2% monthly increase in rent and 5% does not cover, in many cases, their costs. And I understand that. I mean, probably find it ourselves if you look at what you're paying on utilities and power and so on. It's a lot more than 5%. So I do understand that property owners, while their properties are increasing in value, but the cost to maintain and to fix and the cost of lumber has just gone through the roof. So this was a two-sided issue of both people who are being evicted from whole apartment units because the fixed lease rent allows a landlord to do that and bring in people who will be able to pay a 10% higher or something. That's created a problem for landlords. It's created a huge problem for tenants, particularly low-income tenants and racialized tenants. If you read the literature, they are the groups that are being most impacted by this. And the third sentence was finally that council receives updated information and presentation from Dr. Sweetman and her research partners and from various housing support organizations on a regular and timely basis. And the report did mention Sean Gadden. So I wish that motion had been read because I think I think it covers the things we're talking about. I would have supported a motion to amend or reconsider. I'm not sure both of them show up in Robert's rules. I believe that rescind means that, yes, we could come back, but that's what a motion to reconsider or amend is for. The motion to rescind is to get rid of it. And if somebody wants to bring it back, they certainly can, but there's no guarantee, unlike a motion to reconsider or amend. So I cannot support, for that reason, a motion to rescind. I think this is a huge problem. I know it's a huge problem for our landlords. It is a huger problem for people who are living in tents. And I don't know what it was like when we got almost 100 millimeters of rain the other day, but I can only imagine. And so that's my position on it. But if we do rescind it, then this is dead and somebody could bring it back at some point in the future if they wished.
Would anyone else like to speak?
I think, is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
As you, Mayor Donovan, read the last part of that motion where we have the speakers come, I believe that's where we should have started. And that's my my position to rescind has to do with that, with the process. We should have started there. And I think what I would like to do is go back there. And once we do, I'm sure that there would be something that can be very clear and put forward as another motion. It's not difficult for us once we've got that additional information to identify another motion that could help advance the concerns that we have around housing. And it is fair to request that our provincial government review their policies as they relate to housing, because some of them are very outdated and they need to be reviewed. So those are all really important things. I don't think that by rescinding this, we are saying that we care less about the issue. What we're saying is we want to be very clear, we want to be very well informed and make sure that whatever motion is put forward reflects the fact that we've all had an opportunity to gather that information so that it isn't just expressing our emotions, but it's actually expressing the knowledge that we've acquired as a result of a more thorough process. So I still believe that we need to kind of start fresh from there.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
I would agree with Councillor Madeira Voss. After we made this motion, I get quite an earful of what some of the advantages of short-term leases that our students enjoy from that, because they work for students. There's a lot of rentals that would not be available for students if we didn't have fixed term. It's just plain and simple. And then, so I think that to look after our students, there's a somewhat of advantage to a short-term lease. So, which I wasn't even aware of until after we talked about this. So I think the whole thing that we didn't have anywhere near enough information on that. That's why my motion to rescind is like, let's just rescind it and we'll start all over again. If somebody wants to bring it back to the table, I'd be more than willing to listen to it. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I do agree with my colleagues. I don't think that by rescinding it, this topic is going to be dead in the water. I think we're all sitting around this table and we want to find solutions and we're really motivated to. I think it will be brought back up in a more wholesome discussion and we can make more informed decisions. So I'm in favor of rescinding the motion right now. It wasn't how it was read was confusing and we were confused. Just by taking it off and starting new is my preference moving forward.
Okay, anyone else?
Just me.
Councillor Butler.
So I think I may be the only renter in the room, maybe. So I know what this does in terms of rescinding means it just sort of stops a council sort of agenda item moving forward. We as individuals can still do something. We can still write our provincial representatives. As a renter, I have written my provincial representative numerous times not with my council hat on, but as a resident of Wolfville, as a renter who is very concerned about where the rental world is going, we can all send letters on our own individual basis. And then after more information and more discussion as a group, send something if we wish. I always, because I've worked in multiple levels of government, know that how the lanes cross and where we have to stay and what we are responsible for and what our jurisdiction is. But we are all still residents of Wolfville. So we can move our ideas forward on an individual basis without having our council hats on. I think that's very important to do. It's what I've done without bringing that to this table, is as an individual and a renter, I've done that. So I encourage everyone to do that until we get more information and move our discussion as a group forward.
Thank you. Is that it? You ready for the vote? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor,
Aye.
that is passed.
Do we need